And we are live. Welcome to another episode of the New York Information Security Meetup. And I have the great pleasure to introduce Aparna Kadari. How are you today? Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me, David. I'm doing well.
So I'm so excited. Your background, just both professionally and culturally, is so amazing. I haven't had a chance to interview that many folks that with a mix of really interesting backgrounds. So why don't we start? Kind of from the beginning. Like where are your roots? Where you started? You have such an interesting story as well when you relocated, to the States. Got your MBA. So why don't we get started there, kind of like, throughout like the kind of the journey that you've taken.
Sure. I was born and raised in a place called Hyderabad in India. It is very cosmopolitan, and my parents are academicians. I'm the only child. Um, Throughout my education, it was a proper Catholic convent education and the school uniform and all. And after that, I had to go out of state to do my pharmaceutical degree.
In
So
Aparna, just a quick thing. Some people don't realize how diverse is India as a whole. Like there's just so many languages. I was blessed to have Indian roommates in college, and I was just blown away by the diversity from a language and cultural perspective as well. So you just kind of to put a pin on that. So you were culturally raised as Catholic, despite the fact that a lot of people are Hindus, right?
I'm a Hindu, but
Yep.
I went to a Catholic convent school my
Oh, I
entire
see.
life,
Okay.
right?
Okay. I see. I got you.
The medium of education was always in English, so
Hmm.
I'm better in English than in my mother tongue, which is Telugu.
Uh-huh.
But in addition to that, because I grew up in such a diverse environment, I know a couple of other regional languages and multiple other dialects. And that is probably one of the best things I acquired from India. And after coming here, it was easier for me to get acclimated. Of course, I had a lot of difficulty speaking the American accent, and I still do, but it was much easier than some others to fit in. And the best thing I did was to when I came here to do my MBA, I was a resident assistant in college. So the residents took me through a Americanization process that was way faster than some of my colleagues who came from India.
And since you had that, inherent diversity because you grew up in such diverse environment with multiple languages, multiple culture, and so on, it was almost a no-brainer, to get acclimated. Um, and your parents, and I looked at the bio, your parents had big plans for you in terms of a career path, which you did not take, right? Tell me a bit about that.
Uh, So when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a journalist. I was good at writing, and I thought I could express myself really well. And I wanted to be a journalist, and probably an investigative journalist. And my mother, because I'm an only child, she thought I'd be killed at some war front that I would end up covering.
I'm
So
sorry, I'm laughing. It's so funny.
she denied. She said, "Nope, you cannot do that." And then I said, "Okay, can I at least become a lawyer?" And she said, "Nope, you cannot wear a black coat into this house." So I did not know at that time how strong she was in wanting me to become a doctor, because my all my cousins are doctors, and she so badly wanted me to wear a white coat. And just to have that kind of compromise, I said, okay, let me do pharmacy. I went to pharmacy school, did the 4.5 years, and then, but at the back of my mind, I wanted to seek that first opportunity that could get me out. So when I did my MBA, it opened up a lot of other opportunities that I wouldn't have had if I did just pharmaceutical sciences. And I took the plunge after 9/11. There was a dearth of sponsoring, and only IT companies had that leverage. So I took the first chance and got into IT.
And then you were a consultant for a while, so you had you were you becoming very proficient in a lot of different disciplines around consultancy, right? So lean management, so on. Tell me a bit about that. How was that process? So first of all, moving from pharmacy, which by the way, it's by itself is a very difficult discipline as well. It's not a lot of people get into the program. You kind of glanced over it, but it's again, it's not trivial to do that. There's quite a lot of competition as well, and then doing the MBA and then getting into consultancy firm, and then you start doing basically everything else. Like, what was kind of the first engagement that you've done as a consultant? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. So I joined this organization. It was a startup where they were doing a lot of process management, and I interned with another organization which was doing pharmaceutical validation. But eventually, I got into data management, analytics, and then got an opportunity to serve on a team that was invested in Six Sigma to eliminate some redundancies in process and people. And after I came to my current organization, I started with release management. I had no idea how to do release management, but I learned on the job. And through the years, I went from doing release management to operations to project management. And as I call this my calling, I landed in information security.
And you have an interesting story on how when you were first interviewed, right, for the job, and specifically, there was something about you that was really appealing to the interviewer, to the hiring manager. Do you remember what was
Yeah,
that?
I do. There was a lot of competition because InfoSec is hot and continues to be. And there was a lot of competition, especially for a job that is operations driven. And I didn't have much InfoSec experience. So when I first approached the job, especially the interviewer and the hiring manager, they had no clue that I came with so much background. And having no information security experience, I thought I wouldn't do well. But I was true to myself, did the info session with a lot of authenticity, and laid it all out there on what I can do versus what I cannot do. And at some point, I think I had the hiring manager's attention, and they I believe I heard later that they just left the room and said, I found her. So I think that was a turning point on how I got selected.
So interesting. So you mentioned authenticity. I think that's something that we very much glance over when we are, we're talking to people today. We're seeking jobs. So a lot of times, there are a lot of, YouTube how tos in terms of how to answer questions and provide insight and potentially answer the question in the way that the hiring manager supposedly want to hear. But you were taking the other route, which was very successful for you, where you were basically saying, hey, this is my background. I potentially don't know a lot. I don't really know what I know because I come from a very different background, which was very successful. And I think that maybe potentially that's a kind of a breath of fresh air as well, because since a lot of people are coming through the mindset that they have to sell themselves, um, and have an angle on things that they potentially can provide. You came from a very different spot, and was able to grab that very first job, right? So how did you come across, like, the early days of starting that position? How did you get smart about all the technologies? And as you mentioned, you for someone who did not come from that background, even though you had a lot of academic background, a lot of consulting experience, and so on, it wasn't trivial, right? So, what was your first, few months to a year of on the job? How did you get smart about the different technologies?
Oh, I struggled. I had a lot of sleepless nights because I wasn't familiar with the technologies. But because I landed in a management role, I started investing in people first, and then processes, which I'm good at, and then started becoming dangerous enough towards technologies. I don't learn the technology in depth, but I learned just enough to be able to do my job, to be able to help the senior professionals each time they hit a blocker. So um, it was as if someone left me in the middle of the ocean, but I had a very strong team, most of them much better than I am as leaders, as professionals. And they continue to help me learn technologies, learn the intricate nuances that I couldn't coming from outside.
Was there anything that and I'm sure it wasn't all like smooth ride, right? I'm sure there was some areas along the way. Was anybody pushing back, for all of a sudden there's a new manager that comes from a different background without the knowledge? Was anybody pushing back on that? Saying, hey, maybe she's not qualified. Did you get a sense of that at all?
I did not get a sense of anybody being so deliberate in telling me that I'm
Mm.
not qualified for the job. But I did have a learning curve. The first 3 months I spent merely observing and learning, and not jumping into any statements, and trying to talk only when asked. Right? I know that is not the way a lot of people take, but I was making sure that when I said something, it was meaningful and it was relevant. So I tried to make myself relevant first, before I could offer my opinions or solutions to the stakeholders.
Do you find that your investigative curiosity nature help you in that process? Since you wanted to become a journalist, I mean, there's a lot of that process inside cybersecurity in terms of like uncovering the underlying issues and figure things out. Was that part of like you being successful in that role?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my friends call me a class stalker because I am already looking at, I meet a new person.
Sorry, I'm
I'm like,
laughing.
I'm looking at the person, looking at where they come from, is their Facebook profile open, and things like that. So, uh, that kind of detail really helps, especially when you are triaging through any issues, because that really helps you understand the five whys on why the issue happened, and why it happened at that time, and things like that. So yes, it absolutely helps being having that curiosity, that innate curiosity, and that instinctively wanting to learn more and being passionate about knowing more information and craving for more information.
Was there a turning point where you were, thinking, okay, I'm doing well, I'm finally successful. There's got to be some sort of, can you pinpoint where that was? Where like say, okay, yeah, I made it. This is, I'm finally comfortable. Um, I'm successful in my role. Do you remember where in kind of that journey, where was that? Because you recently also got promoted as well, which congratulations, by the way. But was there a turning point somewhere that you could have sensed that?
um, you may not like this, but I'm still not comfortable in what I do. I think it is that discomfort and trying to do things that no one else wants to do that gives me an edge. So I really worry that that urge to feel uncomfortable is going to stop someday, and I will probably not grow. So the longer I'm uncomfortable, and the longer I have the gap where I need to continuously learn, I think that is what gives me the success I've had thus far.
What's the saying that we get promoted to the level of incompetency? Is that
Yeah.
is that
Yep. Yep.
something like that?
The Peter principle, or Hilbert's law, whatever it's called.
So in your day to day, I like to bring people from various different roles, because I find that people within cybersecurity are very siloed. So if they're fulfilling a certain role, they're not exposed to other areas. So you specifically responsible for for the operational support and engineering as well. What is it like for you on a day to day basis? What it is that you do? Like I'm assuming that it fills with meetings, right? And you have projects. What was that like? What is the kind of the and also maybe the kind of the bigger question is how you get measured for success.
Um, So my everyday is chaotic, and that is probably how I thrive in chaos and during pressure. There are very few times when you are not expected to do something. You're always expected to do something and do something better all the time. Going from operations to engineering, it was, and it still is. I have a lot to learn. I haven't yet understood the subject matter expertise, and my everyday is a continuous learning. Also, I think once you end up in a managerial role, your results and how they measure you kind of becomes qualitative versus quantitative. So it's all about how you've influenced people, how you've mobilized your teams, how you've successfully ensured that you've delivered everything that you've committed, versus saying, hey, you did 10 tickets, great job, there was no downtime, and smaller and minutia like that. So the more I keep growing, I have realized that I am measured very qualitatively, and they hold me to higher standards. Not just me, but also the team, because the team automatically moves up the moment I get promoted.
And how do you, speaking about, specifically about motivation, right? How do you, how do you make sure that your team is motivated? Again, it's not an easy role. There's always something, as you mentioned, the high pressure, sometimes not much reward, right? You always get rewarded by like nothing happens, right? The cybersecurity. How do you continuously make sure that your team is motivated and that you're on top of what's happening, especially now when we all kind of work remote as well?
Yeah. So there's no formula to it. I
Mhm.
try not to be a bad manager. I don't aspire to be a good manager because I don't know how good looks like, but I definitely try not to be a bad one. And also, I'm always there for the team. I know it is very hard with the competing priorities, with the work-life balance, but I make sure that I am there for the team, whether it be day, night, any time, that I'm always there for the team. And that is what helps them be motivated to be able to take on the challenges, because they know that they have the safety net in me. And that is how, by little support and little things that we do together, whether it be, a get together virtually, even though we don't have in person get togethers anymore. Often we get together, just chit chat, learn about things, exchange what's happening in each other's life, and just being humane throughout the day. That is how my team gets motivated. And in instances when I'm not, they do tell me, hey, Aparna, you were kind of off, can you please course correct your behavior.
Well, the fact that they tell you that in your face means that right there that you're doing something right about the management style, right? Not everybody has that open relationship with their the supervisor, the boss, and so on. So let's talk a bit about the kind of work life balance, because, and I want to dive in before we kind of dive into some of the kind of the cybersecurity like operation stuff. Um, you write poetry. uh, it's something that at least in North America, I don't know. I don't know personally a lot of people that read poetry. And maybe I'm not in the right circles. Talk to me about that. What within poetry makes it so appealing to you, and how did you become basically a poet, a writer, somebody who is published and so on. And what does that mean to you? I just want to kind of like dive a little bit into that as well.
So my mother is a poet, and she's published and she's written a lot of books, about 40 plus books. I think
Well.
it's kind of genetic, and maybe it's also nurture, because I started writing poetry when I was in third grade, but I published only when I was 18 years old. So the reason why I write poetry is, when I was an only child, I didn't. I had all adults in the household. There was no one my age, and there were so many things that I couldn't relay or relate to, because my grandmother wouldn't understand a word of what I would say when I recited her some words. So I had to kind of sublimate and write this on paper. And once I started writing and sharing with my father and mother, they were so surprised that it actually made sense. And they kind of motivated me to keep writing more. After I In my early adolescence, and yeah, as a young adult, I grew up in a very tough situation, not in my household, but the environment was not very conducive. Like, it was a lot of um, uh, character shaming, and a lot of verbal abuse, and again, not from my household, but outside. So I had to vent somewhere, because my parents, being older, they would not understand what I was trying to tell them. Like, eve teasing was rampant when I was growing up. I used to kind of get beaten up by chains in the dark.
Wow.
Um, so I had to do something. I had to sublimate into something, and I started writing and expressing my fears, expressing my concerns, and that led to more exploring more women emotions and strengths. And that's how I continue writing poetry. It's all about the grit and grace that as human beings we carry, our experiences. I seldom write about the mountains and the skies and the sun and the moon. I always write about people because that's who I get inspired from.
Yeah, it's amazing. Where can people find your poetry, like with your writings? Where if they wanted
um,
to just if they see this interview and want to take a look at it and just read through it.
I publish all my four anthologies for charity.
Hmm.
So when I give them to people, or I don't sell them, but I do give them so that they can donate to their charity of choice. But I do have a blog that have all my poetry since 2012. And anything before that is a PDF document on the blog itself. So that's where they can access all my poetry.
This is a part of this is why when we did some research, prior to this call, like I was like looking at all the different facets of your character and your background and so on, and it's amazing. Like again, you come from a different background, and you have you write poetry, you are in cybersecurity and a financial, and then you also you have a Harley Davidson. I'm gonna put it out there right now, and then you drive a very flashy color Jeep as well, a Wrangler, which is not and I believe it's also a stick shift, right?
It
You
is.
know, so I believe that this all of it, it's kind of like if you look at like a checkered kind of like for if you put all the pieces of the puzzle, it doesn't really add up. Like not in the sense that most people would think. I mean, I'm sure people are surprised that that you don't kind of fit. I don't know if you ever go into a area where people like convene with Harley Davidson. You don't exactly fit that bill. I mean, I may be completely wrong about this, but so tell me, how did it all came about? What made you decide to get a Harley? And again, it's just something that's not trivial. I'd love to hear about that.
I started learning how to ride a motorcycle in India. Even before that, people have to know that when I started learning, I was like merely 4 feet 8 inches tall, and my father himself was 5 feet 2 inches. But so a brave man, he decided to teach me how to ride a motorcycle when I was in sixth grade. And I don't know why he did, but he did, and ever since I never stopped. I couldn't get a license until I was 18 years old, but that didn't stop me from riding. So when I came to the United States, it was very natural for me to go get my motorcycle license, the M license. And when I landed at Nova, where they would like go through the lessons on Friday and Saturday, and then the practical on Sunday before they give you a license, the trainer looked at me and went, "Are you sure you can do this?" And I go, "Yeah, I've done this all my life." And they said, "Okay, feel free to choose your vehicle of choice." And he he was just really not into me at all, because they kept dissuading from me from going farther in the class and wasting their time. But I picked up a Honda Rebel because I'm now 5'2", so that it's closer to the ground and my feet are in the ground. And I aced it. Like, they were shocked and they started calling me Speedy, because I wouldn't go through the gear 1, gear 2, and I just would take off, and they would say, "Hey, slow down, you need to be with the class." So I got my license. And now that I have my license, my neighbor was selling a very nice Harley Davidson, and I got it from him. I purchased it from
I
him.
said, hey, why not?
Yep, why not? And
No.
he was very skeptical when he sold it to me. He was like, "Are you sure? Because you don't look like the Harley kinds." And
So I guess I'm not the only one who's thinking about the same thing, as well as driving a big Wrangler stick shift as well, because you grew up, I guess, with vehicles that were all stick shift, right? There was no automatic vehicles, as you mentioned. That was also natural for you to get one. And here in the States, it's it's almost like a special order. You have to look for it for a vehicle with a standard, standard
Yeah.
gear.
Yeah. And my husband always tries to talk me out of driving the stick shift because he's not comfortable driving it. But the best part is it is very accident proof because all your feet and hands have to be engaged. You cannot talk on the phone. So it's kind of I'm safe driving the stick shift compared to others who are driving an automatic and constantly distracted.
Yeah, I also heard somewhere that they're less prone to getting stolen because the thieves don't like the cars that are,
Of course,
sticks.
of course.
So, are people like where you work with, your team and peers and so on? Are they surprised that when they find out that you are, you have a Jeep Wrangler and it's orange color? Are they surprised? They ever say anything?
There were a lot of people for the first time when they come to know about me, and I drive a Wrangler and a stick shift and a Harley. They are pretty much shocked because I'm sure many Indian women do this, but within our circles, I might be one of the few, right? So they're constantly surprised that I do the things that I do. But as the time went by, I don't think they're surprised anymore. And nowadays, even if I do something out of my character and something different, nobody's surprised. They're like, it's Aparna, she does things all the time, kind of thing.
So shifting gears, pun intended. I wanted to ask you. So you also give a lot back to the community. You're involved in a lot of non-for-profit organizations for, women in tech. Getting promoting women and getting them into STEM. Talk to me about that activity.
Sure. I think my first introduction into giving back uh, came when I was in school. The mentors that I had while doing my MBA uh, gave me so much and made me who I am today that I wanted to find the right time when I can give back to the community and help other women in similar situations or men. So when women in cyber happened, they called me to be their speaker, and that was my first foray into a public forum. And then women in technology gave me the opportunity to be a mentor for working professionals. And there is another segment of women in technology DMV area, that is girls in technology, that also engages in mentoring for STEM girls. So I started off pretty much on these three medium um, about 6 years ago, and I haven't stopped. But at some point, I realized that I do need to be a protege myself, and now I'm with another organization where I'm taking mentoring.
Yeah, definitely, and they definitely are. So we came a long way, right? In the past several years, even women in cybersecurity, the percentage are gone from like something like 6% to like 20%, and it's still the numbers that keep going up. Um, what else needs to be done, to get these numbers to where they need to be? Where do you find that the kind of the biggest gaps right now? Maybe hurdles for people to enter the field.
Um, if I could, anybody could, right? Anybody can do this, but I think it's the way we present and that deliberate hiring, making sure that the roles that we have are uh, not only appealing to women but also their growth, because women often get more stagnated, and if we don't present that growth path for them, I think there is no way that we can attract more women to do cybersecurity. And that is a constant effort that I put in, where I'm marketing about the job, about what I do, and making sure any preconceived notions about why women cannot do. I'm successfully trying to eliminate them through talking, through mentoring, and even deliberate posting on LinkedIn, so that more women are they find it appealing to do these jobs.
Yeah, and I think through that, but it takes a village, right? It's more than just Aparna going and doing that. Um, you know, if you could take this medium that this conversation that we have now, what would be the ask from people, either hiring manager or your peers or people that are in this industry? What should they do to promote that and allow people to enter? So one thing I just to spring to mind is that you were given an opportunity to start with, right? You came from a different background, and I don't think that's trivial. Again, I think that's not often that people from different background or different roles get the first initial role. I think a lot of times they hire for the get hired for the job they had instead of the job they want. What else do you think that is available for us to take action?
I think it's even upon the person to ensure that they are deliberately applying and seeking out opportunities that are not in their comfort zone. Hiring managers should also take a leap of faith, because if someone didn't take a leap of faith in me, I couldn't have been here. So taking that leap of faith, considering all the other great things that a person brings to the job, I think that is more important than trying to fit one on exactly, to that role that has been posted.
Right. So that's I think you're right. I think there's a lot of that going on. I think that there's and there's no lack of resources these days. It seems like we're all more so interconnected than when you grew up, right? We have social media. We can use there's a lot of tools available for our disposal to make that happen as well. So tell me a bit about your where do you go from here? Like you are responsible for a team now. Always talk about personal growth, right? How do you make sure that you're on track? So you're not going to become a doctor, like to appease your mind. You can still wear you can still wear white, I guess, going to the office. um, where do you go from here? What's your growth path personally?
I would like to remain in information security, just because there have been a lot of qualifiers for me that make me happy every day. So, but from a growth perspective, I think because I just got promoted, I would like to do my job well now and start looking into other opportunities, lateral or upward, where I am staying close to the technology and the operations, and being able to educate everyone around me about that security posture. So I don't know if a role like that exists, but I am sure that if I'm able to build a good business case, it'll happen.
So what exactly is appealing to you in that role? Like you mentioned specifically that there's certain areas that you really like in cybersecurity that almost appeal to your personal goal, but also who you are, being inquisitive and so on. What do you find so appealing about this particular industry?
That at the end of the day, you have solved problems, right? You have successfully stopped something bad from happening, and you have ensured that nothing from your organization is compromised, and you are a part of a bigger picture that is protecting people, their data, and ensuring that uh, n- nothing is compromised, that is detrimental, is compromised. So that gives me immense satisfaction, because I feel like a soldier on the war front that has successfully protected and made sure that their subjects are safe and continue to be.
And this is super interesting. And do you find that from a technology perspective, things are also really changed since you joined, the cybersecurity space. There's a lot of emerging technologies like automation, machine learning, AI, quote unquote. Do you find that any particular technologies that are exciting to you that you feel are going to help us in our kind of in the journey to protect the enterprise?
Especially, I think, at least in the role that I am in, I would like to invest in automation, just because there's so much manual work that's being done. And that necessarily doesn't mean that we are trying to eliminate workforce, but that gives us way to do bigger and better things and invest in innovation and doing other things that we don't have the bandwidth to. So at this point in time, what appeals to me is automation, soup to nuts, making sure that our technologies are leveraging that CI/CD, and that we are able to build once and deploy everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So I would love to continue, but we kind of running out of time. I would love to maybe part ways with some maybe positive. That we're now kind of the fourth or fifth wave. Who's counting of the pandemic? Um, what did you find positive in this whole situation? Do you like from experiences perspective, from your personal life, maybe like your job, anything else that you can provide?
Um, One thing I've realized during the pandemic is this was our time to put in effort into self love, taking care of ourselves, taking care of our families, because when we were running around, there was no time. And I found this time very valuable to connect with people, both at work as well as personally. Building those relationships that I probably couldn't have in the hallways at work. And even though it's virtual, it has tremendously helped me knowing other people better, because when you get on a camera virtually and you're talking to a person, you are forced to ask about how are you doing today, and how is family doing, which we wouldn't have done if we had met that person at work and had that hallway conversation. So this pandemic has been more positive than anything else. We did lose a lot of people in our family and friends, but again, in all good health, we hope to carry forward the legacy that we are destined to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm into that. So, Parna, it's been a real pleasure. It's been awesome. I would love to host you in person when things kind of go back on track. I've been saying this for a while, and I am very, very positive about things going back to normal. Maybe in the next upcoming events in New York City, since you're quote unquote fairly local, just a stone throw away or a train right away. Um, what's the best way for people to reach out to you for any reason, for mentorship, for insight, or just continue the conversation? What's the easiest way?
I'm sure. Please email me at Aparna Kadari, my first and last name put together, at gmail.com. And I'm very quick, I promise.
Parna, it's been really great. Thank you very much for taking the time. Looking forward to again seeing you in person again sometime very, very soon.
Thank you
Take
so much
care.
for the opportunity.
Take care, all, and be safe.
You too.